The second letter in staff is, of course, T. T stands for teachable. It takes a certain amount of vulnerability to be teachable, and that's why we first of all have to be secure in love. Then we can move into being teachable. Let me give you a verse from the Bible about not being teachable. In Thessalonians, it talks about certain people who are ever learning but never coming into a knowledge of the truth. So they're in church every week, they're hearing teachings out of the Bible week after week, year after year, but the truth never quite roots in their heart, that there's never actually a learning or an overcoming that occurs. In my own life, I was in church every week for 15 years. I went to Bible school, I served on the mission field, and even in the midst of all of that, still battled many issues of fear, issues of anxiety, impending doom, and things like this would often be a challenge in my life. And it was a very frustrating experience, having been in church for so long and yet not learning to overcome in these particular areas. Another way to look at this is in terms of the grief model. You think of someone who's experienced some kind of a loss, whether that's the loss of a loved one, maybe it's a lost childhood, maybe it's a loss of a job that was important, or a loss of a dream even. Some kind of an experience that someone's had that's been very painful. The grief model gives several stages that everybody goes through when loss occurs like that. There's the shock stage, that we can't believe this thing has occurred, and how will we live with this massive change? Then there's anger and frustration that we're forced into this. After that, there begins to be acceptance, and then finally a new way forward. Many people, when they have a loss, get stuck in the anger stage of it and never grow beyond that, and they stay stuck for years, sometimes for the rest of their life. But those who have a foundation in God's love, who can hold their heart open even when it's painful, they can begin to process their losses. They can begin to move into acceptance and finally into a new way forward. Here's the important part about that. The new way forward is often called reconstruction. And this is lessons learned from the loss I went through. In other words, I was teachable enough to learn certain lessons. So we see someone that has a huge loss from maybe growing up without a father and the pain that caused them. But as they process that and come through the other side of that, they end up having a huge ministry to young people in the inner city who don't have a father. And they become transformational. They enter their promised land, so to speak. All of this occurs when someone can be teachable. If you think of this on even a much simpler level, think of someone who takes up learning a new language but never ends up learning the new language. Or think of how many people start a college degree and don't finish a college degree. People that get stuck in certain relationship challenges that never overcome those relationship challenges. All of this has to do with being teachable. Being teachable has to do with being secure in love. So this begins building the roadmap to maturity, the roadmap to your promised land.